So our focus today is going to be very clearly on the ribs and the thoracic chamber, since the thoracic vertebrae are so interconnected with the rib cage. And that affects our breathing, obviously, but the refocus stage today is on the ribs, the thoracic, the breathing, and then hopefully that gives us some more fluidity in our spine. So it'll be a pretty dense focus with this topic today. So, and you can do this with basic poses that we've all experienced. So we're going to start sitting right in front of our bolster on the short end and gather your blocks and place them below the thighs, but before you get oriented with extra props, I want you to hold onto your ankles and lean forwards and feel the attention in your low to mid back, kind of that hump in your back that starts to careen forward a little bit here. So feel where the back musculature is in motion. Feel where the movement of the back tilts. Take a deep breath so that you actually notice that you fill up the core body like a balloon. And then as you exhale, let all the air out over your feet. And then start to climb back up to realign your spine. And then take a belt. And the belt will be connected so it's a mid-size loop. And place the looped belt over your head. Keep in mind that you have plenty of time to get these things organized. We're not watching your practice. So if you're fumbling with the belt and it's too much, you can always tie it up if it's not agreeing with you and make a bow. But you want to align it so it's enough space that it hooks easily over the tops of your feet. And then you kind of possess the circulation in your back this way. Back possessions. Okay. And I'm going to move the belt so it's as low on the back of my waist to the, right at the gluteal fold. So it's right at the top of the buttocks. Okay. And then as you descend back, push into your bolster with your hands. And then as you lean back, you'll feel the arch of the lower ribs to the mid. And I would encourage you to reorient your blocks so they're situated to comfort you. Keep in mind, we want to use and let your head lower down completely. We want to use the blocks so that they affect our nervous system in a positive way. So you feel like you're supported. It's really key that your nervous system can reset during this practice. If you have a weighted bag, please put that across the ribs where they intersect below the sternum and center your bag as if this is as meditative as you get. Okay, so the beginning pose is a meditative current through the passageways of the ribs and the arms first. So separate the chest muscles by opening out the arms and feeling how the back of the hands touch the floor. And the widening of the rib cage with your breath. Now, of course, the sandbag will make this a little bit more challenging. So if you don't prefer the sand or the weight, you can remove it and do the same exercise, experimenting with elongating the front, opening up the intercostals, the muscles between the ribs with the breath. And let's refocus the breath on widening the ribs and your breathing spaces. So if it's possible, let your eyes close. Inhaling slow. Exhaling low in the belly. The sand gets a little bit slippery on the core. Feel if you can negotiate a terrain for the sandbag that is kind of interesting, right? Mine is maybe not as high as I was anticipating it could stay, but it's not going to stay that high. It's just going to slant back downward. So keep it where it's responding in your breathing. You want your breathing muscles to be responsive. So feel the surface of the body when it breathes, starting to respond to the pose. Reach your arms back overhead and see if you can clutch onto either your elbows or your hands interlacing and stretch the arms back. So either an elbow crisscross or a hands united, stretching back into the palms. Feel the tissues elongate a little bit further. So don't let this throw you off balance. We're focusing both on the widening of the ribs. That's why the sand weight is helpful, because it pushes them out. And the elongation of the arms, the spine, the front of the spine with the arms back, either together with the hands or the elbows clutched. And let's remove that grip with the hands now. And you're going to shift so that you slide your feet closer to the groins. Part of this practice will also be on the support for the lymphatic tissue. That's kind of a altogether restorative theme. But with the inner thigh, the groin stretch, we're going to start to slide the feet in. And if you can, unbuckle the belt. It could be just on you right now. Push down into your feet and lift up the hips and slide a block under the back of your pelvis. Remove one of your blankets back. And you'll have the emphasis here on the sand all the way down to the top of the thigh lids. And if you can, reach your feet forward and down to stretch the waist. Feel the supported bridge pose. The brain needs to be centered back, so you certainly only want your bolster, not a blanket on top of it. So that's enough cervical flexion right there. Now, if you can get a hold of your belt, I know it might be buckled and a little bit challenging, but get the belt and see if you can actually reach your belt back overhead, holding, gripping. Be generous with the width of the belt and the width of your arms, actually. As the feet push, reach down through the thigh muscles. Feel the bands of the thighs contract, so feel the front of the thighs start to lift up and drawing up the kneecaps. Anticipate focus today. This is a good moment to start to set your focus in the practice to coordinating not just the breath, but really the body awareness from upper and mid to lower body. So a deep breath, focus, inhale, belly full. Exhale, feel the belly draw back towards the spine. Okay, now you're going to let go of the belt. And then as you start to slide your feet back up, knees to bending, feet in, let's move our sand aside for the moment and then push into your feet down, lift the hips, slide the block over. And then if you happen to have a grippy ball, you'll get that. If not, you'll use a block next to your left thigh. Okay, so it's either a block or it's a ball. Okay, so any ball will do. That's a mid-size. That's not a tennis ball. It needs to be a little bigger. So you'll slide the ball or block at the very top of the left external thigh and then lift up the right ankle to cross to the left knee and push down into that ball, slant the legs sideways so that the weight is pressing into the ball with gravity. So whatever gravity gives you right now to lean your weight. You want to suspend the focus that the waist is elevated and the arch of the spine is accurate. So hold on to the right knee with the left hand and reach the right arm back besides your head and pull with your left hand. Feel the access into your hip. Feel the reach through the right arm. Elongate. And just simply recognize your focus, right, wherever it may be concentrated right now. See if you can emphasize the awareness in the ribs and the breathing, and then in the land of your right hip. So if you can tug on that knee to the right amount so that the hip is affected, you're really feeling into your right buttock. Now, as you remove your hand from the knee and lower your right arm down, notice if there's any residual stretch there without tugging on the knee. Do you still feel some? As you shift your legs back to neutral, right knee is still motioned open. Feel the ribs lift on the breath as if it's a living being, which you are, right? Living kind of lift of the rib cage, breathing. Uncross to cross to the left leg over to the right knee. Shift the ball or block to the upper outer right thigh. And then tilt your body weight into the ball. Feel that you're actually trying to push over and smush the ball. So the right hand holds the left knee. You give a little bit of pull with the right hand to stretch the left glute. The left arm could reach back besides your head. This gives it a full body sensation. Yeah, even the feet are involved. The right foot, you're kind of sickled on the side of the foot. But feel the awareness through the left hip. Now, once you experience for a good 30 seconds the sensation, that starts to create a little bit of an effect into the joint to warm up the tissues. So we'll keep it rather simple. Now we're going to start to move into variations that are quite bold through the ribs. I'm going to tag them together so they link together. As wise as I could consider that I could do. So feel how this left side, this whole strip of territory from the left armpit down through the ribs, which is pretty long in this position, not like widening, it's more elongate. So I want you to lower the left arm down, release the grip on the left leg, and then we're going to immediately start to roll to our left, so uncross the foot. If you've got a ball, you might keep it with you. If you've got a block, they're going to both be important here. And you're going to roll into your side, left side, okay? And then start to come up and turn your bolster across the mat. So it's horizontal, okay? Situate yourself so that you have a blanket stack. This is important that it's flat on the bottom. So flatten out the blankies. Okay, whatever kind of blankies you have. It's nice to have thick-ish blankets, and even if they're not yoga blankets, that works great. If you've got a weighted bag, get it. And we're going to come into a side sage, kind of via mermaid pose here. But when you lean, I want you to try to let the body turn. We're going to be working on this left rib cage and dissecting the right side for a bit. So I've got a block overhead, and I'm going to use a ball or a block on the inside of the right leg. Okay? Get your sand, put it up to the right side, And then as you lean into your left side, remember this is a focus point as well as the right, we're going to lean in and let the head lower to the blankets and reach the right arm overhead, whether it's on a block or the floor, or perhaps you stretch it open. Yeah, since there's usually 1 to none sandbags on people in the home practice, you might be exploring the radius of the arm and the ribs, kind of the rib radius opening, a little bit of searching. And you might decide to move the sand a little bit higher. And if you do choose that elevation with the bag, I want you to balance your focus here with the lift of the rib cage on your breath. Like you have the waist inhaling, waist hail. Right, so it's that encompassing kind of poof of the waist. The legs can remain, rather grounded. They're certainly going to be a force of curiosity soon in how they're grounding your sequence. But feel when you're on your side, the potential for reach of the side, the right arm. Reach that arm over. Try to let it land on something that you can then let your head burrow a little bit into the blanket. So I try to let my head kind of tilt and rest into the blanket. This might be refreshing for your neck to get a little stretch and not hold that resistance with the neck. Breathing, expanding the breath. Be willing to explore the sensations and the stretch of the movement of your ribs. Okay, now with this reach, I'm going to keep adding, but we'll keep it restorative in nature. So as I mentioned in the beginning, we're focusing on the ribs, the thoracic, and that range of motion affecting your flexibility in the spine and your upper lungs. So when we move our right arm, you might feel a little relief when it lowers to the side or down to the floor. Noticing what relief it is. And this neck zone and the shoulder zone can always have some awareness drawn to it to release it. So feel if you can open the right arm. Kind of an easy way of twisting in the chest. Maybe it feels like a stretch, still intense, but it's nice to use the floor as your prop here. Now, if you're tilting your head a little bit up and it hurts your neck, be sure your head is resting into the blanket. Okay, now we're going to lower the right hand down besides the left and actually get the sand off first, sand free. Now turn like you're going to take that sleeping sage pose, and I want you to actually take the pose. If you've got the ball under that right leg, you could keep it or remove it at this point. But I want you to take that pose without sand for certain. So you're going to feel where the ribs turn to the bolster or the cushion that you're using, and push the blankets out and let your forehead land on the blankets, okay? So you're actually creating that twist through the ribs interlocking the thoracic vertebrae, and then the impact in your lungs is fairly obvious in the pressure here. Okay, so let this be for about 20 seconds. It's going to be a brief twist. We're going to revisit it in sitting. So get a feeling of just the kind of the ease of twisting and turning and just lying into the floor, basically. It just looks like we're doing more than that because we have props, but we're basically turned and then lying prone into the floor. There's some good in lying around. Okay, now move your hands back up to the bolster. Now feel this like a upper body exercise. So my hands on bolster, shoulders back. Kind of interesting with the legs like this. So you're going to push, and you're actually going to reach your ribs towards the back of your mat, so it's an arch. A little bit almost like a pigeon upward dog. An upward pigeon. Okay. So now this left side is balancing. So we're going to turn, face towards the front. Actually, I want you to move your blankets in so you've got one blanket behind your bolster and the block is off to the side. You'll probably use it, but let's move the blanket, one of them off. You could certainly have a block behind you set up for the twist. So we're going into the left side. So as you come up, we tilted down to the left side a moment ago. I want you to actually take a twist with the seated aligned spine. So add a sandbag to the right inner thigh. Yeah, the left leg crosses over the right leg. Okay, if it does not, what can you do that's a variation? You can straighten the right leg out. If the right knee is bugged by it, cross the left leg over, okay? All right, so as we reach the right elbow to the left outer leg, we come back to that twist like we did prone on the floor a few seconds ago. And we're re-encountering this in our spine. And it likely peels up into the upper rib cage in a distinctly sensation, right? There's a little deeper sensation when you're seated, and it's kind of arduous to do it, right? You have to push, and hopefully you're not grunting and gasping, but you're using your right arm to have some strengthening purpose for your shoulder and your upper back. Yeah, so you could do like a kind of a teeny weeny bicep curl to kind of notate the direct value of the arm. And then I would let the right arm relax for a moment. Just use it as a hook on the outside of the left leg to enable the direction in the spine. Be sure your left hand is on something. It doesn't have to be on as high of a prop as I'm using. And some people might use the blanket if the arm is real long. But let your eyes close and give it a few more moments here. And noticing if the hip is affected on the left leg, you can always alternate hugging the left leg in versus hooking the elbow and jabbing it into the leg. You can hug the leg in and then feel that rotation through the ribs. Feel the breath, belly, low back, lower ribs. Now as you slide the right arm up and away from the knee, you're going to turn forwards, okay, and move the block from behind you forward. And then as you cross your legs, so you're in simple crisscross pose, put a sandbag on the left thigh or no sandbag at all, you choose, and take both blocks forward under your hands. The blocks could be high, mid, low. High, mid, low blocks. Okay. Now as you lean forward, feel the knees open, and let's say the blocks feel like it's actually not the best for your back. Maybe it's still a little too much. What you could also do is use like a chair, a folding chair, or a stool. So at home, there's like more props sometimes, more to gather for your practice. So you might try that so that the back feels supported. I want you to feel your shoulders are easily moving forwards. The left knee is open. Now walk the blocks, or if you've got a stool, you're going to slide it over to the top right corner of your space, adjacent to the left foot. So you're feeling the weight in your sitting bones. You're feeling this left side of the rib cage fan out. So moving the body a little tilty side to side to work through the hip and the waist. Now we're going to move into a sleepy pigeon pose. So our hands move the blocks wide, and then as you take that sand off the left thigh, we'll reach our left leg back. Okay, so we're in a right knee forward pigeon, meaning that the elbows are low, so it's more of a sleepy pigeon. So my elbows are either on the floor or the blocks. You decide. If you have blocks, you might have them under your elbows. You might have your forehead on a block. You might like this attention to your neck when you're right at the hairline is on the block. But you got to have some dedication to pushing it down. Now, if that's too much pressure, you could use a blanket, your additional blanket under your forehead as a support to stretch your neck. Bend the left knee, draw the left heel towards the buttock, stretch the quad. Now press down to your elbows, lift up through the brain, and then we'll move back to a table pose and actually guide the bolster under our core. So toes under left foot. Slide your hands back. Try to let these postures link together so there's some sensible directions that we're going through. Sometimes, okay. Not a direction that's critical, but I want you to try to work with pushing into your hands, like you got a little baby push-up, little gecko push-up. And then as you move your right leg back, the knees down, turn the bolster forwards, okay? And then as you lean forward onto that bolster, I want you to let your toes hook under and lift the knees and elbows bend so you are hunkering down here a little bit. You've lowered your upper body downwards. Feel your elbows by the sides, squeezing in, and activate the legs to reach back. Feel less weight into your fingers and lift up your hands, but tuck the elbows by your sides. Really feel how the elbows tuck by the sides. The heels reach back. Feel the arch through the spine. Breathe. Okay, now as your hands are down, you're going to let the toes stay hooked under, and then shoulders sensibly moving back. Okay? Slide the hands forward so the elbows are now on the floor. It seems like my upper kind of lobes of the lungs kind of dunk down through the ribs. So feel the elbows press down. We're getting kind of a lung loop. Okay, the loop of the lungs. Now the toes stay under. This is something where you can get kind of passive and forgetful on. You'll oftentimes just let the knees kind of drop, but stay responsible. Pose responsibly. Someone's watching. Okay, so toes are under and feel your heels back. And the focus and the structure of the practice is its own experience, I think, for the mind. So feel where your elbows stretch back and notice the elbows are pressing. The heels stretch back, but the elbows are stretching too. Here, push down, And see if you can press down to your elbows and then make those toes active enough. Unlikely you're going to lift up your core off your bolster, but noticing this is an activity on its own. So we could try that, right? Feel your elbows close enough under your shoulders and see if you can lift up just a tiny bit off your bolster and press down into your elbows. Okay, push back into your heels so you're hovering a little bit off your bolster. Oh, the bolster's right there, so you can come down at any time. Okay, now really feeling that contraction energy in the body, and then lower down. Your nervous system is very satisfied. Hands slide back, lift up, and then come all the way up to table into a cat pose, chin to chest. Inhale, arch the back. Breathe slow and smooth. Exhale, hollow the belly, chin to chest, around your back. Inhale, arch. And notice if your inhale is shorter than the actual experience of the body moving the bones. So for most of us, the exhale can be continuous and we can keep emptying all the way through cat. But the inhale, we might kind of draw in the oxygen and then we keep moving, but we don't have any more ability to draw in. So try to work on your lung base here. Moving meditation, one breath per movement. Okay, we're going to come back to down dog. So as the toes hook, lift the knees. If you came back into dog pose with an arched back, I want you to walk your feet forward towards your blanket for a moment. And then as your hands walk back towards your blanket, you're going to reach for the bolster, okay? Scoot your toes up, the top part of the bottom of your foot onto the blanket so the heels slant off the back and down to stretch your calves. And then lift up the bolster and feel if you can lower your head between the arms. There's no other place it's going to lower between, but it's an obvious choice. And feel your hips reaching straight back. Feel the arms and the energy loosening up through the shoulders. Let your head nod side to side. Experience that exposure of the ribs here. Back zone open. Now as you casually lower your bolster, kind of find your way down to a forward hang. Your feet might scoot back off of the blanket and kind of reassess yourself here. You got your body in a standing forward bend, Uttanasana. So as you start to Utta, right, you're going to fold forward and feel the upper body push towards the lower body and connecting. And reach the hands to the back of the legs and tuck in your head. And exact moment here is to stretch the spine, but also to feel the formula of the connecting upper lower body. Let the weight of your head hang. Give direction so you can feel the skin cells of the face and that circulation distributing all the way to the brain. Yeah, past the feeling of like your brain stem as a visceral focus, kind of feeling if you let your head go, you very well might release tension. Oh, could happen. This is a good time to practice patience. Let your arms dangle, bend your knees. You got to feel some support from your upper body coming up here. So I have my feet stepping out a little wider. Just kind of notice, like when you almost move into a standing squat, Does this give the knees some motion, some mobility between the knees and your lower back? So if you're on your back with your knees to your chest, it's identical to this, but this feels kind of different when you're in a forward inversion here. So continue walking your hands now towards the front of your mat, to the top, other side, and then squiggle your feet back so that the knees land about together. Play with that. Push into your hands, lift your knees. Again, heels towards the floor, downward dog. Feel the heels lift up and then lower the knees together so you have control in the balance. Okay. Now we're going to bring the right leg to reach behind us, stretching through the heel. Step that foot to the top right corner. Doesn't have another corner to get to probably. Get some blocks if you like, or put your hands on the bolster and lean into that bolster with the left thigh. Let the thigh smush the bolster. Okay. You might find getting the blocks in a little closer is helpful for the ribs to feel some supportive direction. I find it's mostly helpful for my shoulders and my neck. So if I have my blocks a little forward, I'm kind of just getting through the program, you know, then I get a little slouchy energy in my neck and my shoulders hunch. So maybe move them back so it's pretty close and you have a nice realm of kind of realigning the front of the spine. From the left thigh top, the groins feel the stretch right on the right thigh. There's a lot of groin stretch with this one. Just get that feel through the inner thigh. Now as you push into your hands to bring yourself to switch sides, right knee comes back, left leg straight back behind you. Try to lift up the hip and mobilize the back of the leg to reach. Now as you start to step the left foot out to the left side, kind of feel how you work with your hip, your low ribs. You're stepping out wide, slow, sloth slow. All right, and feel the front of that right thigh and a little care for the left knee. Oh, just a dose of it. So if your left knee is kind of angling out, it's got to angle out with the foot turned open. But find that it's above the knee. No, sorry, the knee is above the ankle. Don't bring the knee above the knee. But the knee is above the ankle. So the knee is not aiming over the toes. Right? It's not like dangling over the top of the foot. That would be a lot of it, right thigh stretch. So feel the top of the right thigh elongate. It's possible to stretch the hip flexors and to get some relief in that hinge joint, right? For all of us, that lands right at the very thigh lid and connects into the psoas. Trying to feel a way to get some freedom there coming up here. So when you feel the thigh muscles, we're going to start to prepare to go into the second side series, right, with our pigeon and our side sage twists. So feel that awareness in the arch of the back right now. So it has a pretty elegant wave of motion from the leg muscles crafting into the hip and then up through the spinal column. Okay. Even though this is not easy, it's an intricate way of refreshing the internal, kind of the volume in the core. You want to be kind of voluminous there. Have a life force, right? So come back, have a life force, why don't you? Turn the bolster to horizontal and walk the left foot over to pigeon on the left leg. Kind of creatively zoning into these sides. Okay, so I've got my blocks. I'm going to lower down on this one. So as I lower down, I could have my block in front under my forehead. You can also exchange it for a blanket under your forehead. You can try tilting it. I haven't found a lot of success getting it tilted and supported without feeling it pushy. But it depends on the smushiness of your block. If you have a block that's kind of smushy, you could probably tilt it and then have your forehead on it. You know, that's probably possible for smushy blocks. So feel the left hip. Breathe. Notice the spatial balance through the back thigh. Start to bend the right knee behind you and draw the heel towards the bottom. Okay, now with consideration here on the transition, we continue that moving meditation into the ribs. So stay with the energy here. Try to hold that space. And now as you lean into your left hip, you're going to come up and around. And this time, we're going to go backwards through this second side and kind of see what you find out in the puzzle of piecing together the ribs. So we're going to add our sand to the left thigh, kind of backwards in an intricate way here. And if you find when you cross your right leg over that's too much on your left knee, you can straighten the left leg. Okay, so variation straight, variation bent. Okay, got a block. Okay, reach the left elbow outside the right leg. And it might be helpful for you to notice it's closer to the outer knee than it is like thigh central. So I push, I try to be a little curious about this. You may as well have something the spokes of the ribs, like you're trying to widen out down into the lower tier of your waistline. So work on engaging that arm to hook to the leg, whether the arm is hooked or the holding of the arm, and see if you can lift up out of the waistband. Right, you're trying to get a little bit more out of it. Squeezing the last parts out of that tube. So when you rotate, if the right hand is perched on the block, find where you're able to experience motion all the way up the tier of the back. And where does it land? Right between the shoulder blades. You might hug the leg in intermittently. You might change it up for a few more seconds. Get curious about the waist. Okay, now we're going to move the block out. We'll need both of them. So we'll cross the legs, move our sand over to our right thigh, and then move your blocks in front of you. So you have this lane of reach with your arms, but they're attached to the core, right? So you find that you can move your arms a little farther forwards. Feel the knee motion out. If there's any kind of challenge in the legs that you need some support under them, right? You could add your ball, either leg, or even a towel so that they don't suffer, right? Because what suffers is your whole nervous system. If a little piece of it hurts, it kind of affects the whole mindset. So Use props to support your ability to guide deeper inside. Now when you come over to the left side, walk your blocks or your hands on the floor to the left. Remember, you could use the floor instead of the height. Doesn't mean that it's advancing you though. It might be rounding your back deeper. Now this right side of my waistband is going to be maneuvered over the bolster. Okay, kind of a 360 maneuver, isn't it? So have a block turn back to the center, and then when you come down from your bolster, let's do a little core exercise just for continuing the awareness of our core body, not just our twist body. So what we'll do is we'll take off the sand for a moment. Won't get too sidetracked here. Get a hold of your belt. Slide down off your bolster in front. Seat on floor. Get your belt under your feet. Grab a hold, and then as your feet kick forward, well, they don't kick as much as they're resisting your instruction to your body, and purely put the legs forward and up. Keep it so simple that you're just continuing. You're not discontinuing, but you are choosing to continue. And work with this gravitational flow through the groins. So you're trying to kick them up. Even if you could hold your toes without your belt, I want you to try to use the belt. So you're engaging through the thick back ribs. And not just flexibility. Now, as you lower down your feet, you're going to move to side sage on the right hip down. So I'm going to turn to the right leg, move my blankets back in a stack. Okay? And keep it simple. This is again, a meditative motion practice. So it doesn't need to be fast, but you might find directions are useful to get you to do these helpful poses for your structure. So I've got the sand on the side, and I'm going to lower down on my head, and I'm kind of peeking back towards the screen more than last time because you're that direction. But I find that sometimes when I have a little bit of diverted focus, other parts of the system I can work with, like for instance, my lower legs are interacting more on this one. I've got the ball on the inside of the left knee, right on the inner layer, connected to the lower bones of the leg. And then my right foot is actually on the ball, and I'm kind of pushing a little bit with the right foot so that I can continuously elongate this left side. Okay. I'm missing a block overhead, huh? All right, so get something overhead if you're using that. Now the arm could be not with any object. It could be simply both of them are open. But feel where you want that sandbag. Do you want it on your hip? You want to turn a little to the right side. And you might put the sand higher on just across the ribs. Doesn't have to be fancy and perfect. You might change the leg status so that one leg is closer to the bolster, one is kind of stretching down where it's comfortable. Let the legs create a habit of supporting you, not doing more. This practice isn't one about doing as much as it's about opening. It's about finding ways to open up. So where your head relaxes, your left side opens. Breathe slow. Exhale completely. And now when we move the left arm back open, we take the sand aside. I want this to be essential awareness here. I'm going to move the ball, okay? And then when I turn to my bolster now, turning down, I'm going to actually twist and then forehead on blankets. Okay, so push out the blankets a little bit so that you can lower your head down and into the floor, downwards. Yeah, maybe the spine can easily turn for you on this one. The volume in the back is quite different. Now, this will be interesting today, how we're going to move the medley of the twist into an inversion. So give this about another 20 seconds. Right, in my book, the focus on opening inner space is about twists and inversions. Those two go hand in hand. So here we have the twist, kind of feeling that kind of rumble internally. Rotate. Let go. Hands slide back. Feel the hands wide, elbows wide as your bolster. Push. And then placing one of the blankets off to the side. And then one blanket. I think this will be the right setting for your head. I'm pretty sure this might work out. If you've got some blocks around, you might put them off to the side so they're not behind you. And then you're going to make a full recovery here. You're going to turn as if you have to recover from that. Turn so you're sitting on your bolster. And then lie back so the back of your pelvis is on top of the bolster. Pelvi is on the bolster. And that wideness in the lower ribs, it takes a little bit of adjusting. Right? So you might be kind of shifting. And then I want us to work our way towards right into Viparita Karani, inverted action. Right, so the real focus here is, it's kind of a refocus to reverse the flow of gravity in the legs, but I find I'm most curious about how this is restorative and actually soothing for the organs, right? So it reverses the pull of gravity on the organs, right? For the natural downward pull during the day. Kind of the sagging organs idea, right? So this is the opposite of prolapse. So giving ourselves at least a solid minute to 2 on this one. So I want you to feel that you first have to get it. Get the legs established so they're at 90 degrees. If they're not at 60, you're not trying to draw them over your ribs. They're straight up from the hips. Feel the flexing of the feet and the spreading out of your arms. And let your elbows bend. If the heart rate gets a little bit active and you start to have some concern about the restorative quality of this one, I think the orientation of the legs makes that interaction happen. And then it really does lower the heart rate, the blood pressure, soothing the nervous system. Now, you don't have to have sand on your feet. If you want to use your belt, you could place that around the balls of the feet and bring your elbows down and hold the belt and see if that's securing you. You can also let the feet be with a little weight on them. So the weight of the eyes settles inwards, the eyelids closed. And even though opening your eyes feels like you're kind of releasing, it does bring a lot into your nervous system. Not only what's in your room around you or distractions, but thoughts, things will come into your inner atmosphere just by having your eyes open. So concentrate on that scan of moving the belly with the breath. Give it a few more moments. Feel the expansion and contraction. Now, as you bend through your knees, kind of summarize how this feels in the low back, right? So bending the knees, I start to feel the weight deliver circulation into my lower back. So I want you to bend the knees a little further so you have more of a leg press. And then reach up to your sand and move it off. And then we're going to orient a ball or a block between the knees. So if you have a ball, use that. If you have a block, perfect. They're both fine. The difference with the ball is it has a bit of a responsive surface, so you can kind of squeeze into it. And it will unlikely fall on you. Blocks can be a little bit less adaptive to the skin squeezing. So I'm going to hold on to the object center of the legs and then let the knees swerve from side to side. Feel movement of the knees. And direct the waist to stretch now. So feel as we have moved from our side sage into our inversion, and then swaying the knees side to side kind of starts to bring us full circle of the practice. Kind of go for it. You're up on a bolster, so it does add a dimension of traction. So my head turns right when my knees go left. And then when my knees shift to the right side, head goes over to the left side. Now come back into center and reach your hands for your bolster and then push it forward. So you might have to squeeze your knees in towards the chest, but stay with that idea of holding onto that object between the knees with your muscular awareness through the thighs. And then feet on bolster, push down, lift up the hips. So start to guide yourself into a bridge pose. And when the block or ball is between the knees, you're going to work your way towards pushing downwards with your feet and your hands now, besides your hips and below. Push down, lift up, elongate, and feeling that contraction in the buttocks. It's like they work as a unit often, okay? So they are kind of have this nice interconnection with the pelvic floor, with the back of the pelvis, all the way up to the network of the lumbar. So more of the lumbosacral area. If you were to lift your hand up to that lower back, the very base of the lower back curve, right towards the tailbone spatially, you kind of feel that strong threading right now. Now lower the spine down. Ease the back carefully. Take it a couple more times, about 3 more. So draw bridge, arms reach forwards, forwards up off the floor, and then bring them back overhead. Feel your pressure down to your feet. Exhale, lower the spine down. Feel the length through the back. And then as you push down to your feet and lift up, feel the circulation move up the back muscles and into the chest. Okay, let's bring it there. So as you lower down this time, you'll simply bring your knees in and you'll move the ball or block aside. And then bring your knees to windshield wiper, feet on the bolster. So windshield wiper the knees. And as they go side to side, your waist likely stays moving comfortably with the spine's weight. So we're going to add into the spine care here. So knees center. Okay, let's bring the bolster, push it over to the right side of your mat. Feel where it's elevated mildly. So I have the bolster flat. What you could do is add a blanket on top of the bolster, but find out if your left leg crosses over to the bolster if you want that additional height on top. Okay, so first feel if your leg can kind of center on the bolster to the right. And if it does so on its own, you can add your sand to it. If it doesn't adapt to the bolster with comfort, then you'll add a blanket on top of the bolster. Then your sand on your leg. Spread open the left arm, center the hip, turn and feeling the body rotate gradually up at the top of the chest and then over to the collarbones and the throat. Feeling your head actually turn to the left. The right hand could be on the external left thigh. It could also be open and both arms being cactus. So cactus or T-shape, whichever seems to be the most comforting. Now respecting the breath pace, that's natural for you right now. So if the inhale kind of trickles in for 4 to 5 counts, and the exhale relaxes out of the body. You can always deepen the stretch by the mere emphasis of opening through the arms, through the ribs. But you're feeling in this final twist the coordination of the belly and the back. And it's kind of in between a prone twist that we did earlier and a seated twist. It's kind of interactive like those two, but it's a nice kind of finale twist, I find. Okay, now when your arm on that left side slides down and then you meet the sandbag, take that away, sand on ribs, feet stomp down in front of below your hips, right? So feel your feet press down, feel the connection into the legs. Keep it real simple here, nothing lifting or trying to push up off the floor, but try to let the spine really meet the ground perfectly. Push down into your feet, tiny, tiny pelvic tilt. You've got the sand, so you're going to feel a little resistance. And it's a tiny pelvic tilt to iron out the lower back to the floor. Move the sand just right besides your right hip. Okay, hands on floor besides hips, knees into chest. Bring your legs straight up to 90 degrees. And then forward to 60. Inhale to 90, straight up, no props. Maybe a blanket under your head, but that's it. And then forward to 60-degree angle, strengthening our core. Inhale straight up, above the hips, not too far back. And then bring your legs forwards. Feel where the legs draw together. And then as you come back straight up, press down to your hands. Okay, feel your feet lift, feel the heels reach. You're not trying to levitate off the floor here, but feel the energy of the legs, togetherness and pushiness through the heels. Okay, so we'll bend the knees, hug them into the chest deeply. Now feel the knees hug in, feel what you could do to feel a little bit more spaciousness in your lower lumbosacral area. Rocking might be good, stillness might be good for some. Sometimes getting a nice firm hug is enough. Okay. Now we're going to move the bolster to the left side. So as you place it on over, you might do a little bit of a reclining push-up. Bolsters over, chest, hands pushing it up. Yeah, feel the elbows bend, squeeze them into the sides, push the bolster up. It's a good 7 pounds. Couple of little bolster push-ups. You can always put the bolster on your knees and then call it a push-up. Okay. Now try to move the bolster a little back overhead, strengthening your upper arms. Bring your feet to the floor. It's a good one. So coordinate. Feel the slant of the arms back and that clutch of the upper back muscles into the rhomboids. Okay, bolster straight over heart. Turn to the left with the bolster over on the left side. Straighten the left leg, cross the right leg over to the bolster. Okay, so as you feel that awareness in the lower back widen, you're going to add a sandbag. And you know what I didn't add in last time was that ball at the sacrum. If you already did that, we'll give you an extra point. The ball idea is if you have a ball, I think it pretty much needs to be a circular arrangement near your sacrum. So you would just simply gradually press it into the lower sacral band and just let it be there. It'll stick there. And then the right arm bands stretch open. Yeah, feel the diaphragmatic band, the breath wellness from this position. This is also a nice respiratory stretch for the lower lungs and the diaphragm. So arms can stretch open, head turns to the right. Internalize the feeling of moving the body via the breath as a cycle of in and out breath. So that's the cycle that you're moving through, is breathing in, breathing out, arranging your focus onto that pattern. It feels like we're doing a lot of activation, but it's quite meditative. Feel where the waist is expanding at the very upper rib cage. Feel where the waist is contracting in the lower belly, massaging into the organs. And this will be where we actually land our practice, is in the visceral bathing and massaging of the organs today. It's a morning practice, so it's an easier time to work with that ritual of breath work and the diaphragmatic band, because there's probably less volume moving through the digestive tract. So just notice the times of day to do breath work are quite useful to use the morning time for some of that practice, even if it's sitting still or laying on your back and just experiencing that conscious flow of breath in the core. Okay, now feel when you move anything that's around the sacrum away, a ball, get that away. Start to guide your sandbag aside. And then as you come back to center, we're going to set up, prep for that final pose. So alternate right knee into chest, left leg down, then left leg into chest, right leg down. And give it about 2 more each side. So 2 more rounds. Knee to chest, leg down. Feel if your back is stretching when you bring your knee in on the side of the leg bending. So that side of the spine has the stretch. Now we're going to even that out. So hold the back of your legs, roll up, okay? Take a block set. So they're at their second setting in the front. Now, what you could do for this is to set them up at the second or the third setting, depending on the height ratio that your legs work with. If you're short, lower, it's not going to work with the blocks high. You'll fall off of it. But if you're long, it might work okay. Have the blocks wide enough so it can easily hold the bolster without it teetering off. Wide at the base. Yeah. You got a bolster bench. All right, so I'm going to have you move the blanket if you can. I can't actually move your blanket, but you might move your blankets so that you have it in a either a long fold right under your spine, or it could be rolled up into a tube, and then placing the blanket at the back. Okay, this lower blanket under your spine could be in a tube, so it has a little bit more of a lift in your ribs. I'm going to have it flat. It's just a little bit more sedate, okay, for me. So it depends on how your back will respond. You be the decider. You. Okay, so I have my sand option. I'm going to place the sand today on my ribs. So when I lower down my back, you could have a sandbag on your shins. It's just that you'll have to get that off. Okay, so I want you to be as comfortable with your nervous system response as possible. So sometimes you think ahead too much when you're in the pose about the sand on the shins, and that's not quite calming. Okay. So I've got the sand options here, shins and or ribs. Bring the sand from belly to heart, or heart to belly, whatever you want, to the, really to the, all the way downward so that you can feel the belly move with the vibration of inhale. And the sandbag is fairly narrow on top of that land, so that when you breathe in, it's like you're trying to elevate that pile of sand, but you're also constructively strengthening the core. This could be core strengthening. I do this one. Let the arms stretch open so that the ribs can liberate themselves. Rib liberation. Okay, hands rest open. Twinkling toes to resting feet, and feel the levity of the experience of breathing and really staying in that central chamber, ribs to belly. Let's return the body back into balance from the practice we've sequenced. And it may be just a little bit of vibrational change inside. It doesn't have to be a whole lot that'll be effective for your nervous system, for your structure. It's almost like the more subtle, the more therapeutic sometimes. So you're sensitive to the breath and responsive to the out breath. Let's experience a few more moments. Make sure your arms are comfortable so they're not set out too far back that you're feeling a jolt in your shoulders. Feel a relaxed heart and a relaxing core. Now, feeling the weight of your legs, scan that feeling of the legs heavy, and then that gravitational flow that you're flushing the fluid from the legs and intensifying that flush of the lymph nodes to the groins, and expanding and contracting in the core. And then at the same time, you're starting to flush and open up the respiratory tree, the upper ribs, the lobes of the lungs, relaxing at the bronchial tubes in the throat. Gather your attention on the breath. Just feeling the essence of being simple and feeling the simple practice. And soak it up, absorb. So as you process the practice, this will probably be hopefully continuing into your day in quiet moments when you're thinking or feeling your body. Now with your feet resting, the heels are basically lightly floating. You're going to move your sand off of your core and let the body feel that change. Try to notice the belly move with the breath. Yeah, maybe it can progressively lift a little bit higher with the lower belly motion and tug, right? There's not so much pushing down. Now the tug of life force is transparent here. So when I bring my feet onto the bolster, the challenge with the blanket now is it's not really a smart idea to put your knees to your chest when you have height under your back, like this. And so what we'll do is we'll let the knees shift a little right to left, and then we'll use that momentum to bring your knees all the way directionally to one side, and then in a little ball, you're going to crawl over into that ball and come up to sit. Okay, so let's join our focus together for a moment, sitting on top of a blanket, set or one. And then as the legs are in that crossed angle, feel where you realign your spine. And likely you can sit up with a different presence from being in the practice. Having a practice may allow you to sit high off of the hips, and then let our hands lift up and align the palms in front of the heart space, bowing our head down to the open heart. Inhale, and with an exhalation, surrendering to the space behind your heart. Namaste. Okay. All right. I hope that went okay for people.